going. Yeah, hopefully, anyways. But let's go ahead and kick things off.
Yeah, basically, as Phil mentioned, this will hopefully be a weekly thing. We'll see how it goes. This is the premiere episode, so a lot of what this is in the future will be based off what we do today. Basically, the purpose of this is to bring everybody together, the units, the various factions participating in community warfare, and discuss some of the important topics and issues within community warfare. Hopefully with the purpose to improve the experience for all of us. And also, it's kind of a recruitment tool. This is for people who maybe haven't experienced community warfare yet, and maybe give them some insight into what it's like and bring some more people in. So without further ado, we will introduce the four unit leaders that we have with us today from various factions throughout the Inner Sphere, or invading the Inner Sphere. First, we will introduce... Let's go with Antonius Rex. Antonius, how you doing?
Doing well. Bomb?
Good to have you here. We appreciate you showing up. Why don't you go ahead and this will go for all of you, but we'll get you started first. Antonius, give me your name, your unit, your role within the unit, and without going into a lot of detail, because we'll be doing that afterwards, what your community warfare experience has been so far. So Antonius, take it away.
Cool. Well, hey guys, I'm Antonius Rex. I'm the leader of the Swords of Kentares, and one of the founders of the Mercstar Alliance, which in CW terms is those MS tags you see all over the place. And I guess I do a lot of different roles, but I guess the big thing I'd say, the experience with CW so far has been really quite good. We spent over 2 years waiting for it, right? And it's finally here, and there's a number of units out there that have really embraced it, and I think are really, really enjoying themselves in this new war.
Indeed, some of us have waited even longer than 2 years. It seems like it's been forever, but it is finally here. But again, without going into a lot of detail, your experience so far has been good, bad? Yes, your tags are everywhere. We know that.
It's been good. This has been a lot of fun. And you don't always fight the top tier teams, but I gotta say, with someone with a big competitive or comp play MWO background, being able to have a 12v12 against another organized team is some of the greatest MWO experiences I've had outside of comp play. You get some just nail biter games. We've had a couple end with 3 seconds left on the clock and taking the Omega out with 4 mechs on either side alive. And I love this game mode. There's so much potential here for them to grow off of this early model. Very excited.
Indeed. Well, we'll be getting into some of that. Let's go with Steve Mack next. You want to give a little info about yourself?
Hey, my name's Steve. I'm just a battalion commander for the Robinson Rangers Brigade, but I also just run all the CW related stuff for the Rangers.
Cool. So that's your unit. Are you a drop leader, or are you?
I do. I do drop command, but working with Davian House units, I don't tend to drop command too much anymore.
Sure, a lot of politics.
Deal with the politics and the day-to-day stuff.
So again, without going into a lot of detail, what's your experience been so far?
It's actually been pretty positive. It's got its ups and downs, but it's only a month old, if that. So I see a lot of good things coming to it.
Yeah, it is beta. Cool. We'll move on to Gecko. Gecko, you want to give us a little info about yourself?
Hi. I'm a star captain in Jade Falcon Prime. Basically, what I do is essentially I run the tactical operations section of our clan. Essentially, just making sure everyone's up on intel and tactics and strategies and all that kind of good jazz.
Excellent. And what's your experience been so far?
Overwhelmingly positive. There's some ticks here and there, but we, as a unit, we kind of understand it's beta. But it went from, okay, we're having fun, we're playing the game, to it brought a lot of love and enjoyment back into the game that we desperately want to play. So it's just fun. I think the other guys kind of hit the nail on the head. It's just fun.
We're finally fighting for something.
Yes, indeed. I think we're going to say, it's beta a number of times tonight, but okay, that aside, we all know that that's why we're here, to improve the experience that we're having. And last but not least, let's see, Arasai, you want to give us some info about yourself?
Sure. How you doing?
Hello.
Am I coming through?
Yes, you're coming through quite well. So your name is RSI, and you are unit leader for.
Yeah, my name is RSI. I'm actually the lore master for Clan Wolf International. We're a heavily lore-based unit that encompasses multiple galaxies and various units that all want to run the Clan Wolf tag in a lore-based faction.
Lore Master. I love that we have those now. And what has your experience been so far?
So far, it's been overwhelmingly positive. I think a little bit of the shininess is kind of worn off, but it's still it's a great game style, and so far we're still enjoying it.
Well, hopefully we're here to make moves towards bringing some more shininess, other shininess, new shininess. Anyway, so Phil, you want to launch us into our first discussion topic of the day?
Yeah, speaking of which, we have a ton to talk about, and it's one of those things where we want to get your opinion, your thoughts, and your expertise, because you guys are the ones involved. So the first topic is queue times, and we've seen a lot of different feedback out there, but so let's go ahead and jump into planetary queue information and queue times and stuff like that. What's your guys' experience been with the queue times? And, are you guys happy or disappointed? Stuff like that.
Yeah, what we'll do is remember the Xing up. Also, real quick, while you guys are thinking about that topic, I do want to also say thank you for everybody that showed up today. First of all, thank you to you for the unit leaders. Obviously, without you guys, we couldn't make this happen, and it is really hard to organize 4 people, believe it or not, to show up at the same time, same day, with work schedules, and everybody's like, oh, this is obviously community warfare time, so people are wanting to be out there and putting their tags on planets. So we totally appreciate you guys showing up, and all of you out there listening in the audience, thank you for showing up. Now, as Phil mentioned, the first discussion topic is queue times. There's a lot of things to talk about under queue times, but the first one is planetary queue information. Obviously, there was a hot patch after community warfare came out that increased the amount of information that we had. What do you guys think of that? And do we need more? What are your thoughts? First person to X up was Antonius Rex.
So them adding in that the data in terms of the player counts everywhere, that was just pure gold. Once you can understand what those numbers mean and get a good feel of how to interact with them, it drastically can reduce the time your guys are waiting in queue, and it lets you really make smart decisions in terms of sort of time effectiveness, right? I mean, not all of us have 10 hours a day to commit to CW, obviously, and so when you got those guys who are only there for an hour or two, you don't want to spend half or more of your time in queue. And so having those population numbers really, really goes a long way towards being able to get in the game quickly, because none of us want to sit in queue. That sucks. And none of us want to sit in queue just to get a turret rush.
Right.
And so these population numbers really let us sort of understand where people are fighting and how to get games in quickly.
Excellent. Gecko?
So yeah, I'm in agreement here with is it Antonius, right?
Yes.
Okay, Antonius, and what I was saying is that it definitely lets you better just spend your time a little more wisely in terms of like where you want to wait and where or rather don't want to wait. I think it definitely can have some room for improvement. I think a small just tidbit on there is basically kind of like maybe an indicator of how many large groups are running in that particular queue. So just kind of give you an idea of how hard it's being hit, not just a large amount of pugs, but that can help as well in terms of giving a unit an indication of like, hey, what's exactly hitting this unit? Is it just basically a bunch of people kind of filtering in because there's nowhere else to fight, or is it a concentrated effort by another unit?
Cool. Now I'm going to move on to Steve Mack, but also keep in mind, if there's anything that you guys want to see added to the planetary queue information, you can bring that up now as well. And if Gecko or Antonius, you think of something that you want to add to that, go ahead and X up again and we'll go back to you. So Steve Mack, what is your thoughts on the planetary queue information before and where it's at now and where it could be?
Well, before it's a lot better than what it was before, because you could have a full 12 minute to start and you'd still be counting up 15-20 minutes before you even get into a drop. Now the only problem I'm seeing, like a lot of my guys are complaining, if they only have like 10 men on, they can be up in the queue for almost 20 minutes to half an hour in some cases. And it actually gets a little discouraging for them to actually want to stay in and do it.
I agree. RSI, what do you think?
I'll echo what Steve was saying, because what I've noticed so far is, if you're running a full group of 12, the queue times are actually, they're not too bad. But anytime you're running less than 12, even if you're looking for just that one or two extra players, it just, it can go upwards pretty much any number of minutes. And I know I've dropped a CW at least a few times solo, and the solo experience in CW when it comes to queue times, even with the numbers on the planet, is still pretty brutal.
All right, so I got a question for you guys. Just sort of a follow-up is, what do you think is an acceptable wait time?
That's a hard one, huh? Gecko, go for it.
I think that adds perspective in terms of how informed you are about how long that wait time is going to be. Because if you don't know you're going to wait 5 minutes, it could seem like it's really long. But if you know, hey, we're going to drop in exactly 7, that's more bearable. So it's
Right.
it really depends on what's available, in terms of like that kind of information.
Antonius, you wanted to mention a resource?
Yeah. Since we were
We can
talking
go ahead
about,
and link it.
yeah, if you guys want to maybe link that to the stream.
Sure, we'll
This
put
is
it in
one of
there.
the
Go ahead and tell
resources
us.
I have up. If I'm ever at my computer, I've got this up. And basically, I'm not sure who did it exactly, but I figure if I can find the name, we should give him a tip of the hat. Anyways, I love this resource. It refreshes every 15 minutes. It's based off of the API data that PGI released on CW. And basically, it shows you at any given time what's going on in CW. You can see, if you look at that map, Star's End is roughly at 80%, and you can look down and Goido's at 20%, and let's see, Dabbing getting beat up today, a little bit on Bead, but not so bad maybe. Anyways, the point is, it's tough to look at the MWO map and click through every single planet to get a good idea, and so this resource really just puts it all up into a nice, easy to read format once you understand what it's trying to tell you.
Very cool. Well, I'll add this link to the show notes so that those of us, those of you listening in or listening post show, will have that link. Anyway, I think there's going to be a lot of information given by Russ tomorrow regarding the planetary queue information. I think there's a lot more coming. Anything to cut those queue times down. I know we're all going to be happy about that. But now the next topic on queue times, the 10-minute countdown. Do you guys have any opinions on that? Is the 10-minute countdown okay? Should we see a 5-minute countdown? And what will the results be? Antonius, you were first. Go ahead.
I can definitely see the benefits that PGI was aiming to bring into with that. There was a bit of a problem when you had that 5-minute queue time, right? If one faction outnumbered another faction, or they say one faction just wasn't participating in CW or was asleep or off hours, whatever, that 5-minute queue time compared to the 10-minute, you could sort of ghost drop a planet at twice the rate you can currently. And so I definitely agree with PGI's idea to try and do that. The issue just becomes, 10-minute wait just to fight turrets is pretty painful, and then you do that once or twice, can't find people, and you just log off for the night. So it's good and bad. It's not a perfect solution, but I can understand what they were trying to do with it, and it makes sense from a gameplay perspective, or sort of like a campaign stability perspective.
Sure.
Unfortunately, the problem was that it doesn't necessarily make the player experience better necessarily. That being said, if you're just fighting turrets anyways, it's not like you're getting a full CW experience anyway. So,
well, we will be talking about turret drops shortly. Phil?
I was going to say, I have a question for, I guess, Steve Mack, the next thing. Would you be okay with turret drops just being removed? And if there isn't someone, you just get the benefit of the win and you move on. Is that something you guys would like?
Actually, that is a question down in the.
Oh, did I spoil it?
Yeah.
I totally spoiled. Well, we already So we are already asked. So yeah.
A peek into the future.
Into the future.
One possibility is just turret drops being removed completely. You just if nobody shows up, you get the rewards and you move on. We will get to that. But Steve Mack, you did have some input on the 10-minute countdown.
Actually, Antonius pretty much nailed everything on the head that I wanted to say about it, because it does, like, it goes back to people getting discouraged if they're waiting to find a group for almost 20 minutes sometimes, and then they got that 10-minute countdown. There's half an hour, and guys will just pack up and go home after they get that one drop in, especially if it is just a turret run.
Yep. No, I agree. It's an issue that needs to be further addressed, looked into. Gecko?
Yeah, I mean, everything that these guys said before is true. I mean, in addition to that, it's like the other side of that sword is that if it's not sufficiently long, at that point you can literally snipe a planet out with sufficient amount of numbers in only a small amount of time. So you're gonna have to like worry about both sides. I think something that can probably be done to fix both the queue time and maybe avoid these turret fights is come up with modes or fights that don't require full 12 that actually add to the planetary fight, but not in such a meaningful way as a full-on 12v12 brawl mash.
I
Gotcha.
think just one other thing you can add to that is PGI did try and address the problem, because I mean they're smart enough, they knew the pros and cons of the system they brought in. But with sorry, I had a bit of brain fart there.
It's okay. Phil does it all the time. Phil, you had something to say?
No, I was gonna say I've just been reading the comments and Twitch, and I'm seeing a lot of 5-minute. I asked earlier, what's an appropriate wait time, and it seems to be like everyone's basically saying, hey, we get why they did it, but it's a little bit too long. And of course, this all stacks on top of one thing or the other. You guys just said you get a match, 10 minutes, then the match, you're 30 minutes, boom, it's gone just to get into a match. So I feel like 5 minutes, and obviously solving some of the issues with turret drops and what you guys are talking about. Maybe just sort of, hey, if everyone's ready, just get them in the match really quick.
Sorry, I found my train of thought there. One of the things PGI did to help with that is by adding in the player count information, so you know where people are fighting. It's like, yes, 10-minute wait, then a turret drop is kind of shitty, but unless you're going in eyes wide open, you can see that, oh, there's 0 people on the planet. It's more than likely we're going to get a turret drop until we rouse the defenders or something like that. So, they've given players the ability to adapt to the situation. So I think that helps quite a bit.
I agree. Now, let's see. Well, Eris and Gecko, do you have comments regarding the 10-minute countdown?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, in addition to agreeing what has already been said, I think the 10-minute countdown is pretty much at the upper limit of most players' patience. I don't know what it is about the 10-minute countdown, but when it was back at the 5-minute countdown, even if you got multiple drops like that, taking out the motive for taking the planet and everything like that, but people were more inclined to stick around for multiple 5-minute drops, whereas 10-minute drops is usually half the people leave, another one, the rest of your players leave. So I think at this point, I'm not going to go into the next subject that we were going to talk about with turret drops, but I think the 10-minute countdown is pretty much at the upper limit of a lot of players' patience, and anything that needs to be done to fix ghost dropping and the mechanics behind that needs to be looked at in terms of the percentages or fractions of the planet.
Sure. And I think these countdowns, this issue that we're dealing with, people in watching the stream can already see ahead in what's coming up in the topics. There's some things that I think will work to resolve this. But Gecko, did you have something to add?
Yeah. I think it compounds to the fact that it's not truly a 10-minute countdown. It's actually longer because you can sit there waiting in the lobby with
counting up
with all the pilots receiving orders there up to 10 minutes or even longer, and then finally once you get the team together, then you're waiting another 10 minutes. Yeah. I mean, last night we had I think it was a grand total of 22-minute countdown, because combined total was 12 plus 10, so it just compounded. 10 minutes by itself, not that big of a deal for me, at least, but when you start compounding that into other countdowns, it just starts getting out of hand.
Agreed.
And Gecko brings up a really good point. I mean, a lot of my experience comes from only having to worry about counting down. I mean, as a general rule, it's like we pretty much only play as 12-mans, or it's really late at night if we don't have the 12-man going. So I'd say that's the biggest thing you can do as a unit to cut down your wait times, is playing as a 12-man. And obviously that's not possible for all units, especially over the entirety of a day, for sure. But this 20th patch, and I mean, I really voiced an opinion that we wanted this before CW was released, and I was glad that they were bringing it in, is the fact that on the 20th patch we're supposed to be able to, say me and Erisai are both Clan Wolf, we can form a 12-man together with our units if we're under the same faction.
Yeah,
and
faction
so
grouping.
Just that, the number one rule, if I could give to new units, is drop as 12-mans, because that's how the queue system, like your first-class citizens in the queue. And
yeah,
you
and
just get right into your games.
and we'll get into that too. Actually, this is all coming up. So now moving on from the 10-minute countdown, and obviously most of us, I think, feel like the 10 minutes is too long. 5 minutes is more doable. I think that well, first of all, we'll look at player and faction population, see how that affects queue times. But also then we'll move into solo and small groups versus full 12-man groups, and things that will hopefully help the queue for all involved from solo to 12-mans, including faction grouping, small, well, anyway, these kinds of things. So we'll move into that. Player and faction population. Any ideas as how that's affecting queue times currently? Let's see. Those were previous X up, right?
I actually have a question for Antonius, just because this sort of pertains to it. You and your unit, or units, did something actually what I saw ahead of time, which was you guys were a conglomerate of small units, and you basically...
An alliance.
Yeah, you realized something very important. You want to talk of what was the reasoning behind what you guys did, and maybe explain what you guys did to everyone else?
Well, and this is directly related to player and faction population. Some people are realizing they're in a really strong unit. They win all, if not almost all, of their matches, but they still can't take territory. They can't take planets because there's not enough population. So yeah, Antonius, what did you guys do about that?
Well, that's something we realized really early on with the information PGI had released, that numbers were going to be very important. Not only just base numbers, but 24-hour numbers, having oceanic populations, having European populations, having North American populations. And so, SWK, or Swords of Gintaris, which is the unit I founded, we've always been a smaller unit. We only had 25 guys, and even though we've had a huge history of over 2 years of comp play, we've played 120 competitive matches nearly, more than that if you include all of the Proxys games, and yet coming into community warfare just as a single entity, we wouldn't have been able to have nearly the effect on this as we want, right? I mean, we're a comp team that gets on from 9 p.m. till midnight, and a lot of comp teams are like that, and we don't have a presence during the day. And so, we realized that was going to be an issue, right? And so we started working with units that we've had past experience with or had relationships with over the last 2 years, and we got together and we formed an organization where we're, as you said, a conglomerate of 6 different comp units that all sort of banded together just for CW. And so outside of CW, we're all our individual units, with full individuality and sovereignty. You recruit your own players, you run your own comp team, you run your own website, all of that. It's just under CW, we fight under the same tag, because on our own, we're sort of small time. Together, well, you can see what we've been able to do in such a short period of time.
Strength in numbers. Now, yeah, how's that going for you? I'm assuming, since I see Mercstar tags all over the universe, it's going well. So alliances work?
They can be. It's a weird situation. A lot of bigger units just want to absorb teams, right? And that's what they're looking at. Okay, we'd like to absorb your team of 5 to 20 guys and bring you into us. Whereas Mercstar, it's a conglomerate of solely independent units. We all get together and have our council meetings, and we discuss what our plans should be, what faction we want to fight for. And then the other big draw for us is that we do 50% IS and 50% clan. We just take 1-week contracts and we swap back and forth. I mean, so many of us have $300 worth of clan max as well as $300 worth of IS max. It's like, why would I want to play only half of those? I love all of them. So,
all right. So you figured out something that works for you guys and seems to be working well. Steve Mack, what are your thoughts?
Well, the population actually, we all got the boom from the Christmas break. Everybody was online, everybody was happy, but it's actually started to wane out a little bit, I think. Like, just looking at the Davian server, which a lot of the Davian units actually group together to work together, we're having not a hard time, but we're seeing the definite population drops from what we had like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing that too. Unit I'm running with, obviously, is there as well. Gecko.
Something to say that what he was talking about is that maybe that's a feature that PGI can put into the game, alliances, like allowing units to have their own sovereignty in game and also in their their tags and everything like that. But being part of an alliance, giving that alliance its own tag. So when you start taking planets as part of that alliance, you can have that tagged up, and kind of maybe like a little sub thing where it shows that unit's part of that alliance and whatnot, and just kind of facilitate that behavior, so to allow the population to you know that show the same kind of behavior and actually work together and basically leverage what little population they do have into more activity for everybody, both their opponents and themselves.
So building in alliances, have you ever checked out EVE Online? You can do, you can have your corporation and then you can have your alliance. It's all built into the UI. I would love to see something like that as well, because I think alliances are totally valid, and it's, part of where this game is going.
I have not, but I do remember Warhammer Online. God forbid if you've played that game. They did have guilds, and then they had alliances. So they had a guild chat, and then had an alliance chat.
Yeah.
It definitely facilitated a lot because some units don't have the ability to have a full 12 man at X hour, much like the other units in that one don't, and so it helps facilitate what we want to be doing anyways in our own team speak. We're starting to see that not just in Mercstar, we're starting to see that with Smoke Jaguar. We're starting to see that with Jade Falcon. We're starting to see people organizing outside of that. But if you had a tool in the game that helps facilitate that, it'd be easier, and it basically it just would be better overall for the community.
Absolutely. RSI, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think what we've kind of learned over the past few weeks in the initial implementation of CW is that alliances definitely are the big part of it, and one of the things that we were looking forward to is it creates a very fluid and dynamic CW environment. And I think overall the biggest hurdle for the developers as a whole is trying to find ways where they can satisfy both sides of the coin, where you have players that want to be in multi-unit alliances and switching factions and helping out other factions, but then also helping out the ones that are dedicated to like a singular faction and are mostly the lore-based units that are kind of, I guess at this point, feeling a little bit left behind.
Yeah, whatever happened to... I mean, I know back in the day when PGI was getting the CW stuff first, the literature on it, that phase 1 or phase 2 was going to be the house factions, and then they were going to deal with the Merc factions, and it feels like, I don't know if they ever said we're stepping away from that or not. I may have missed that, but it definitely feels like now either you're a house unit and you only fight for one team, which comes with some LP bonuses, but obviously you can't move around, you don't have the same freedoms, and then the other 50% of the population tends to be, I guess, what I'd call mercs, who fight for whoever they want to at a given time. And when you look at a lot of the top teams in CW right now, and most of them have fought for multiple factions.
Yeah, that's going to probably be a question to ask Russ tomorrow at the town hall. I don't know. I know what you're talking about, but as far as what his vision or what their vision is this year in that direction, I don't know. So hopefully we'll get some response to that. Phil, you had something to say?
Yeah, I have a question for you guys, and whoever wants to answer first, just X up, is have you seen a drop-off inside your units? And if so, why? If is it burnout? Is it just real life? Stuff like that. Have you seen a decrease in numbers internally? Gecko?
I mean, we see it partially. I don't think it has a lot to do with Christmas vacation or anything like that, because a lot of our guys are pretty active regardless. It's just a lot of times it's just the novelty's kind of wearing off, and it's like, well, 2 maps, 1 mode kind of gets a little stale after a while, and so when you're and especially with no matchmaker, a lot of times we'll get put up against just pugs with as a 12 man at that point. It's like, sure, we get to shoot things that aren't turrets, but it might as well be.
RSI?
Yeah, I would say our unit has experienced a significant drop in the player activity overall, and I would actually say that over the Christmas and New Year's breaks, our units were actually more active during that time than this time now post-break. And I think part of that has to do with, as I said before, with the shininess factor kind of wearing off. But another part I think that kind of went into it was what I was talking about before, with how CW is very fluid and dynamic, and I think a lot of guys in our unit have been pretty much going up against a lot of really tough teams for quite a long time. And I think with all the stuff that's happened to our faction over the past week, I think a lot of the guys just didn't quite say give up, but they're just taking a break from it because they've been pretty much fighting nonstop for a long period of time, and it just gets repetitive after a while.
Steve Mac?
Well, just to pretty much echo what the other two in front of me have said, it boils down to the grind too. Like if they're waiting in matches forever, and some guys had to dump a hell of a lot of C-bills into kitting out all their mechs they need, they've gone back to pugging for a while just to rebuild all their C-bills.
Antonius.
It comes back again to, I feel the ability to hop around factions is such a blessing for many units, both comp units and non-competitive units. I feel like a lot of the units that have had been stuck as a house faction, some of the dabbing units, or Liao, or Wolf, or FRR, Steiner, like any of them, when you're stuck there and times get tough, I mean, you're stuck there, right? You got to deal with what's going on, and the options are, continue doing the heroic defense, or maybe just go play the regular queue for a while, or something like that. Whereas you look at the factions that are happy to hop around and fight in different war zones, it's like every week is a new campaign. Every week you're fighting new teams, new players, and you're always hopping around. There's always some war zone that has high population, so you can just hop in and basically get insta-queues. It's just the unfortunate reality is not every faction has that situation going on at a time, and so being able to move around lets you capitalize on those possibilities, I guess.
Yeah. Phil?
Let me ask you a question. This, I guess, goes with it. Do you find community warfare fun, or do you look at it more of like not necessarily a job, but you're having to put in more work? Do you think that factors into a lot of this?
Let's see. I'm sorry.
I think it's Gecko.
Gecko,
Yep.
Yeah, Gecko.
I think it's fun. Personally, I love the idea. It just feels more intense. The game itself feels more intense in the sense that there's more coordination because the plus one, the map design, and two, the objectives are a little more linear. But also at the end of it, the map, nothing beats the satisfaction. I know some of you, the novelty is lost on some of you guys who have like multiple, tags on multiple planets or whatever. But like when you do a lot of fighting, you're like, yeah, we got our tag on that planet, even if it's just for the day, because it gets be taken back the next day. It kind of validates all that effort, and so I think it's just fun, and it just gives you different rewards other than basically grinding C-bills, for the next mech config you want to build.
Yep. No, I agree. Arisai?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the objective and rewards based playstyle. It's definitely, you've got an actual end goal that you're aiming for. And the thing I love most about CW is, half the times in the group queue, or actually I'd say most of the time, pretty much your greatest chance of success is just to get into a death ball and win. And I think with the most recent changes to CW that kind of prevented the light Zerg rush that was initially in there from the beginning, I think now, we're actually seeing a time where tactics and stuff like that actually do make an impact. And, I think one of the best feelings is if you've got a team of mostly newer players, but they listen well and they actually, pull off a relatively complicated maneuver, and you can catch a much better team with their pants down basically and win the game. There's no greater feeling than that.
No pants. Steve Mac?
I think it's personally a lot of fun because I've always liked the strategic aspect of it all, like you said earlier, the politics, moving the chess pieces around the board essentially, and
Yeah.
like what was echoed before, the death balling.
Yeah, I think, well, it's kind of what we're moving into next. Now, obviously, player and faction population does matter. There's things that you can do about it. Just ask Antonius. And there's ways to work the system. Obviously, more things coming into the game, into community warfare, fleshing it out more, developing it further will help those things. But anyway, moving into the next topic under Q times is solo and small groups versus full 12-mans. Now, this is a I guess I want to use the word controversial topic, because for some of us that play other games that have the competitive community warfare aspect, whatever you want to call it, in the other games, A lot of them don't allow solo players in small groups. It's either you have a full group, your unit or your team is there, or you're not playing it. I definitely think that community warfare and this type of combat and planetary ownership caters to that. But obviously, PGI has made the goal to allow solo and small groups in, and so because that's the case, we need to make it as fun and enjoyable for everybody as possible. So, what are you guys' thoughts on solo and small groups versus 12 mans, and different subject matter within it? Like faction grouping is obviously going to help solo and small groups a lot. VoIP will help solo and small groups a lot. So let's see who's first here. Antonius, your thoughts?
Mine was for the last topic.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gecko.
I think creating content that allows smaller groups to play in smaller groups when there's no option for them to go up against into the full 12 man is really needed, because it will fix some of the issues we talked about previously in terms of like, hey, we don't have enough people to to make a full 12, so congratulations, you're waiting in the queue for 20 minutes. Instead of doing that, you're going up against in a 4v4 or an 8v8 or what have you, and allows Somalians to kind of participate in the war, if you will, and it reduces the queue times, because those games won't last very long and they'll get tossed right back into the mix again. And it's one of those things where I know the queue is split enough to where matchmaker seems like it's an impossibility, but even just something small of going, cool, if you're in a 12-man and there's currently a 12-man in the queue that happen to be in a fight, we'd rather have you wait for that game to finish than put you up against a 12-man, which we might as well just put you up against turrets. Because pugs don't enjoy, getting rolled over.
Stomp.
And
Yep.
don't get rolled over, and 12-mans rather play other 12-mans.
Airsi?
Yeah, I definitely echo that. And from the solo player and group player experience, there's a wide range of play styles in the solo queue for CW, where some games are kind of exactly like the public solo queue, and other games are highly organized and you can actually rally them together. I think I'm not gonna put this out as like an official suggestion, but like I think looking at the matchmaker in the different ways, I don't know if there's any possibilities of there being smaller groups where you have certain territories on the planet that can be contested in, like, say 6v6 games or 4v4s that count for a smaller faction of the planets, where so that way solo players can go up against teams that aren't necessarily full 12 mans that will roll them over, but they'll still feel like they're contributing to the fight.
Hopefully you tune in to the town hall meeting tomorrow night with Russ, because he's going to say something specifically about what you just brought up.
Some bombs are going to be dropped.
Yes, there will be some bombs dropped. Antonius?
I was going to say, I mean, PGI has done a lot of things to help with sort of the solo queue. I mean, you can see the population numbers. The 20th patch, I think, is going to be such a big deal when you can group up with other people in your faction. That'll be a really big deal. But I fear splitting the player base. I mean, I've heard the suggestion of, okay, well, just make it like the regular queue, where you've got the solo drop, or the solo queue and the group queue. And that's not the answer at all. I mean, one, the group queues will just start solo dropping as a group, and since you're all in one faction, you'll all get put up together. So an easy counter to that. But yeah, whatever we can do to increase the population numbers will serve CW so much better than splitting up the community in that sense. I mean, it's just too small, and it's not a perfect answer, and I don't know what the answer is, but I feel like
hopefully
splitting
PGI
up the queues isn't. Yeah, hopefully. And, I mean, they're the ones who are paid to do it, so I suspect they've got a good idea of some possibilities that could help.
Yeah, it's what I was saying before about having content for the smaller groups, and like you were saying, a way of participating in the battle that isn't necessarily just those points and you having different territories or whatever. I mean, you can break it down into a percentage based, taking of the planet rather than the specific notches. So you have like 12v12 equal X number percentage of planet ownership, while 6v6s and 8v8s or whatever system they choose would be less of that. And so, it kind of gives them a way to participate, but it's used mostly as like a queue filler. It says that keep people from waiting in queue for too long, but less allow them to fight. And I think, kind of utilizing the call to arms system and the planetary information menu or setup that they have on there would help as well, in the sense that it allows, say you're running a 12-man and you want to help contribute somewhere, and you see specifically, hey, there's another 12-man or a large group running on this planet, whereas the another planet is mostly just mostly pugs. At the same time, if you're a solo player, hey, I don't want to get stomped by a 12-man, and over here you're telling me, hey, there's a spot specifically open for solo players. So it's kind of like, it doesn't really prohibit it, but it kind of guides the population into a more appropriate game.
Gotcha. Phil?
So I have a question, and this is more dedicated towards solo players. Now, we were just talking about this on the podcast, and I feel it's a privilege to bring up. But when talking about solo players, you have a lot of people out there that have shown a lot of frustration of basically saying, "Hey, I'm dropping solo, and I'm just getting raffle stumped every single time." Obviously, the call to arms is being fixed. I think that's been tweeted out and saying, and the command share that's being fixed. So there actually will be a call to arms. But one of the things I brought up was, are you just cannon fodder? Right now you basically are. You're filler, right? If it could be a full 12 man of pugs, it could be 2 of you, it could be 1 of you to fill in the gaps. Is that the role solo players need to accept? Or do you believe it should be the roles, I guess? Do you have any other options for them out there? Because we're not doing 12-man groups all the time, right? That's not a requirement. And because you have all those gaps, you have to have solo players. Do you just tell the people, suck the hell up, this is a team game? Like, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
RSI.
I think the sad reality is, in a way, the solo players do act as filler for a lot of spots. And, right now, I'd like to see them have more participation and more of a objective that they can be specifically catered towards. But I also think it's, not really much of a suck it up for the solo players factor, but I think it actually falls on the larger units to actually, make sure they're looking out for the solo players and give them at least a good game experience, like where instead of, just instantly rushing for the generator and just, creating this death ball rush that will endlessly or instantly win the game in about 2 minutes. I know many lore-based clan units have called out pug teams and said, hey, do you guys want to do Zellbriggen one-on-one battles? And then they just do one-on-one until eventually no mechs are left on one side. So I think experiences like that greatly enhance the experience of CW, because it gives solo players a different kind of experience that they're not used to, and something that they can enjoy. Even though they may still lose the game, they can still look at it as a good experience.
Steve Mack.
I think in regards to what everybody said, I think the faction grouping is going to actually help that a lot. Because if you got to say I've got 4 guys and I come over here and I see another 8 guys just sitting in a queue looking for a drop, it's like, hey, you want to group up? You're all Davians, let's go. And just have some fun in CW. It'd almost be just like grouping up with people in the public queues.
Gecko.
I think another I echo what these guys are saying as well. These are all good ideas. I think something that can be added to this is the ability to copy and paste on the lobby. I know that sounds like really minor, but I'm at that point, I'm able to copy and paste the TeamSpeak info, and they're able to copy it from there and then go into the TeamSpeak and then go to the appropriate, TeamSpeak to join in that. I know we've had several cases where, pugs will come into our channel and coordinate with us, and then we're always grateful for that, and they're always grateful for the experience. We try to give it out every single game, but just make it more convenient. That's really all it is. We have the tools, we just need to make it easier to use.
Cool. Antonius?
Yeah, Gecko nailed it right on the head there. I've always been involved in group play. The number of times I've solo dropped outside of a tournament that required it are very small, because this is a team game after all. But I guess the biggest advice I could ever give to sort of the pugs or the solo queue guys, some people have their reasons for not wanting to play in a group, but in CW, especially after the 20th change, where if you're in the same faction you can play with each other, a lot of options open up. So many of the factions have sort of unified faction team speaks, like FRR has theirs, a Wolf has a sort of a Wolf hub, I heard. Steiner's got one, Davian's got one on the Headhunter server, and the point is all of these factions have big team speaks where really you just need to Google it for the most part, and you can usually get the information. And so if you're a new player or an older player who's looking to play with people, this game is meant to be a team game, and so I strongly encourage everyone who plays this to, you don't have to join a unit, but there's nothing saying if you're a Davian player, you can't go hop on the Davian server and go find a 12-man to play with. Even if it's not a 12-man, a 6-man is better than solo dropping. I mean, I am biased, but the options are there if you're willing to, take the 10 minutes to find them.
Teams are OP, Phil.
Teamwork OP.
Teamwork is OP. So I guess, I've heard a little bit about it. You guys want some small maybe objectives that may scale for solo players, but throughout all of the answers I just basically heard is this is a team game, and it is pushing out. We referenced EVE Online earlier. Another game too that we've talked about, Darren, is like World of Tanks, very similar in ways, but World of Tanks does only full matches. They don't have solo players. Is that something
in Clan Wars?
In Clan Wars, sorry, let me preference that. In Clan Wars, which is basically planetary warfare, community warfare. Yeah. So I guess my question is, is that what's needed? And this, I know this is totally hypothetical. Is that what's needed, basically, to say, hey, if you want to do community warfare, you have. Well, no, I'm just asking. Like, for instance, if you're going around in community warfare, you can roll with any size group you want, but you're not going to get filler of individual players. I don't know. To me, it just seems very tough for a solo player to basically. I get both sides. I don't want to be rolled and rolled and rolled, but also, how do you cater to both when this is community warfare? So.
Gecko, do you have something short? I do want to move on to the next topic.
It is short.
Go for it.
You asked the question, is it what's needed? Probably. Can we do it? Probably not. We don't have the player base like Watt does, but we also have the pros of being more inclusive than that system does. And it allows people who don't have clans or aren't with their clans at that point in time to join up and be part of that environment anyways. That being said, I think maybe a small message or even a small tutorial or even a small video for anyone, dropping on CW for the first time as a solo player, tell them straight up, like, hey, this is a team game. Here are all your options for joining up with other people. Coordinate with them, because this isn't exactly going to be friendly for you if you go by yourself.
Yeah, I think, okay, first of all, the two biggest issues that I see people talking about with community warfare right now are queue times and rewards. We're moving into the next discussion topic, which is going to be rewards. But queue times, I think we're going to see a lot of updates, changes, making it better over the next month or two. First of all, we already saw what the increased planetary queue information has brought us. It's for people who understand it. We're able to get into matches more, avoid turret drops, etc. Additional things like faction grouping, huge. I mean, I think that can't be stated, enough, that's going to be a huge boon to community warfare. And then something that you guys are going to hear tomorrow, Phil and I know about, is that there's going to be some big news about VoIP, basically. We can't go into detail, but you're going to hear about it from Russ. Really big news. I think that's going to help. Basically, anything making the experience better for new players, single players, solo players, small groups, etc., is just going to make the experience better for everybody, including full 12-mans. I think there's a lot of stuff coming that's going to help with the queue times, get people back into community warfare. And let's talk about one of those now, which is rewards. Phil, do you have something you want to say?
Basically, just in regards to solo players, and even group. At the end of the day, it comes down to organization. So any type of tool, any type of system, especially in game, the less that the person has to do individually, especially third party, if they don't have to leave the game, as long as it's in game, any type of organizational solo, if you're playing for a faction, you've got the call to arms and other options. If it's organizing them in game, it's going to help their gaming experience. It's going to give them more chances to win matches and earn rewards and stuff like that. But I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, is just getting them tools in game to where it leads them to success. Because at the end of the day, no one likes to just lose every single time. And I'm not saying that's always guaranteed, but a lot of the times, that caters towards that. But
all right, so the next discussion topic is rewards. We're going to talk about match rewards, individual match rewards, planetary ownership rewards, which right now is your tags, and of course loyalty points. So beginning with match rewards, what do you guys think about match rewards compared to solo and group queue? There's been some complaints about people farming C-bills in community warfare. What do you guys think? And I did take my eyes away from the chat, so who X'd up first? Are any of these current X's?
No.
Okay, I'll start with Aerosai.
I think overall, I haven't seen too much farming in CW. I have heard of it happening, but the general consensus I've seen is that with the queue times, the wait time for it to count up to find a full team, and then the full counter as you're counting down, that the solo and the public queues, or I mean the solo and the group queues, are both more worth it in the long run for people to grind in. And I think CW, you're pretty much breaking even with like normal group play if you're really pulling a strong game. And I'm talking like you're doing at least 5-6 kills, getting 1,500 plus damage, and then you might see an appreciable extra C-bills and stuff like that. But I think for the majority of players that are playing, they're not really seeing much of a bonus to playing CW, and they're actually seeing it as a liability that they're losing more opportunities for profit over time.
All right, Antonius, you're next, but I really quickly just want to add also, add to the idea of the discussion, should community warfare matches even be comparable? Does it matter if your unit's dropping community warfare? Is that what's on their mind, grinding C-bills? Should that be a separate thing? People use the public queues for grinding, etc. I'm not saying one way or the other, but Antonius, go for it.
It's an interesting point you brought up, and I guess I would like to see CW be seen as a more profitable thing. CW is touted as the hardcore mode, the end game content, if you will, of PGI's MWO, and so that's troubling to hear, Aresi, that the general populace isn't making money in CW, and that has to really be frustrating. I mean, if you're not making money and you're losing a lot, then what's the point? That makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't you just go make money in the public queue?
Well, I see people in my unit grinding public matches to earn C-bills and level their mechs, and then specifically dropping CW for 3 or 4 hours a day and not so much worried about it. Now, of course, who's going to say, no, I don't want more C-bills, and no, I don't want more rewards. So again, I'm not saying one way or the other, but yeah, just keep that in mind. Gecko?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think my experience with CW, and I mean, we're always running 12-mans. We tend to have like a 98% win rate or something stupid like that. And because I'm called the Q Whisperer, some people call me that, in that I can read the numbers, and for the most part, I can insta-Q us very consistently, just because we're willing to fight all over the place, right? And so my experience is CW has been a money farm. I mean, I've made $160 million in the last 4 weeks, and I only play CW. So
the Q Whisperer, I fucking love that.
So the possibility for CW profits is immense. Like I'm not kidding you. The amount of money MS has made playing CW. That being said, it's different circumstances, right? Good drop rates, always playing 12-mans, high win percentages, stuff like that. So that's why I'm concerned when I hear that, perhaps the other side of the equation is people make more money in the regular queue, because I can honestly tell you I've never made this much money in the regular queue.
Well, and you learn to work the system both with alliances and being a Q Whisperer. Gecko?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if everything's running right, CW can be a really good way to grind out C-bills and farm up essentially. But it's one of those things where I'm coming from a complete bias from a unit that has a permanent contract with a faction, so I can say with absolute certainty we're not here for the C-bills. So it's going to for rewards. There kind of needs to be something else.
I'd be down with more money for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, more money can be good. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where, like, if they gave us something to the ends of like, cool, everyone in your faction has Jade Falcon skins or something like that, just something that doesn't necessarily just line your pockets, because a lot of times we don't care. It's a lot of times we just we're playing the game for CW, not necessarily just for the game itself. And a lot of times in matches, we get efficient at winning, and so we can end the matches with very minimal amount of effort. And so then when that happens, then I don't mean like, okay, we're off or stuff. I'm talking about we can win it quickly. Mm-hmm. And so when we do that, we don't make as much money. And so like we're not really incentivized to actually win quickly.
Gotcha. Steve Mack?
Well, for the C-bills, even if they just up the base awards, like your kills, your wins, your losses, all that. That would actually probably go a good way to bring in the solo players. I lost my train of thought there.
Well, more money, the more, like, basically solo players right now are getting in. They're not making a lot of money. They see, everybody needs C-bills. There's not a single person out there
Yeah.
that I know. So yeah, increasing the incentives of the payout rewards would bring hopefully some of the solo players back.
Yeah, because
I'd
if you're
be
spending
very-
almost 40 minutes in a queue, including your long wait time, if you're a solo player, then you get a match that's over in 10 minutes. You could have dropped three solo matches and made double what you just made in a loss.
I wouldn't mind seeing, I think, and maybe that could help with the solo player experience, is just a flat bonus. If you're solo dropping in CW, you're just given 100K just off the top as win or lose. And the thing that kills me about you know how like PGI has increased the rewards you get for the different factions, and I love that they're doing that because it's a way PGI can work with CW and push things to create better campaign balance and things like that. And like American Civil War, that's I know all about that. But I really hope that they find a way to incentivize this for some people. And the current reward system, honestly, for me, is a joke. I'm super pleased that it's worked. I mean, you saw FRR take a contract bonus and a whole bunch of teams flooded to them. CSJ got one, a whole bunch of teams flooded there. Liao, same thing. And that's really great to see. The cosmic joke of it all is, though, for the average player, like, what, you get an extra 50 LP and like 50 grand, but only if you win? I mean, if I'm making 750 grand in a game, like 50K is a joke. It doesn't even pay for it, barely pays for the Artie strike I used 4 times in a match. I mean,
some more balance to the payouts, the rewards, and a paycheck for being cannon fodder. That is interesting. Phil, you had something. Gecko, you're next, but Phil.
Well, I think we got to look at it from a few different perspectives. One, solo players for the most part are going up against you, Antonius. They're going up against other units, and it's really tough to basically say if you up the incentive or up the reward for everybody, that inherently makes the top of the food chain even richer. I think where you'd have to look at it is on a per match basis, that the game knows, hey, I've got a mixed match hodgepodge on team A, and then I've got let's just say Mercstar on team B. Well, inherently knows all those guys are hodgepodge, so hey, let's give them multipliers for whatever their earnings because they're individuals and stuff like that. I think that would work, because basically what it's saying is, we realize you're going up against a 12-man. We realize you're going up against a 10-man, and that, hey, you overcame that with smaller numbers, organized numbers. But I do think there are some things that are going to be changing as far as helping communication, command, will, and VoIP. But also, I do want to point out that, sorry. Someone just poked me on TeamSpeak. No, don't poke me. I also want to point out the fact of what is it, farming of C-bills even wrong? Because at the end of the day, and I do want to point this out, if PGI doesn't want that behavior, they have to change the game
and increase the rewards,
or just for the fact of should community warfare be a way to make money? Now, Antonius, you're saying yes, and some of the people out there are saying that's what solo and group queue. Well, I'm going to throw this out there. I agree with both sides, but if community warfare is 24/7, you should have the option of at least making enough money to buy other mechs or other maybe rewards or achievements based on community warfare that rewards you for playing in there 24/7. And even if I'm a solo player, I should be rewarded for being cannon fodder so much and putting myself at risk and stuff. But that is a point of saying, if community warfare is 24/7, am I expected to play there 24/7? Am I expected? And if I'm a solo player, I'm not making a whole lot of money, and I know that's true because I've dropped solo. So it's one of those things where I think if there was a multiplier, if there was a way, it would incentivize people going out there.
Phil, take that maybe even one step further. You look at the time disparity, where 90% of CW happens in that 5 p.m. till ceasefire Eastern window, right? And after ceasefire, everything's quiet. Maybe even take that a step further and go, on the 12 hours of least populated days, we're going to double your cash. just give people incentive to play at those off hours.
That's
And
money.
start
Well, we're
building
gonna-
the population base there.
We're going to talk about 24/7 thing a little bit later. Gecko, I do want to get to you because we do need to move
Sure.
along, guys. I'm sorry. Obviously, this could be 5 hours, but Gecko?
Sure thing. I mean, I want to echo what Phil said, and is it Tonius Aries that said it?
I think Antonius.
So yeah, about having the incentivizing play outside that clutch, window. I think those are going to be good steps. I think you can even take it a step further, going, hey, you're a solo player. We know you're basically signing up with the blindfold over your eyes, you're marching right towards the 12-man. So here's some money to help ease that pain a little bit. Just kind of just a flat reward of like you're going in solo queue. Here's a flat reward that you're getting. Period. Just incentivize people in there because we can't make CW successful if people don't go to it. So we need a way of flooding them into it, even if it is giving them a flat reward to do it. The type of reward system is like for units, for example. Once you start having things like unit inventories and all that kind of stuff, having modules, like having things that they're flat out given as a unit that are given higher loyalty points. At that point, you go, hey, you know what? You need help with some modules. We're going to give you, radar dope. We're going to give you target acquisition. We're going to give you seismic, and that's basically unit property essentially. So it kind of helps different ways other than C-bills, because like I said before, some people just don't need them.
I just want to just highlight one of the things he said is it needs to be a flat rate. The problem in my eye with the current loyalty boost is if you're sitting 40 minutes in queue, get into a 10-minute game, get rolled, and then you don't even get the bonus 50 LP, then what's the point? And so it really needs to be that flat rate where, seriously, if you're solo dropping, and I really hope PGI is looking at this, is just give them $100 grand for showing up. Please.
They're listening.
That is legit. I think that'll really help the situation. Perhaps it causes some other problems that I haven't foreseen. It's a new idea, but the point is, the flat rate is what'll help it.
We need people.
I mean, the solo guys, they can't have a higher than 50% win rate. I'm assuming it's 35-40%. I don't have any good idea, but so a flat rate is what's needed, not a win-based reward.
Phil?
One of the things I'd like to point out, and we're about to talk about this, planet ownership and rewards and loyalty points, is the higher level of what community warfare, and we don't know, and this is something that, Russ is going to be talking about tomorrow in the town hall, but is, are units going to actually be fighting and incentivized for other things other than C-bills and loyalty points, or at least C-bills? So, for instance, one of your units drops a 12-man, and instead of farming C-bills, you don't do that. You just get the match over really quick because you want to move on to something higher level, higher up as far as the rewards, and again, I don't have any details on that or what it could be, but those are the type of things that would incentivize the unit to say, hey, we're not going to sit here. We don't really need the C-bills. We need these other rewards that a planet or taking. This is why we're fighting for this planet, not just for C-bills. And again, it disproportionately, any type of reward system you have to look will always favor the bigger numbers because you're winning more. So if you flip that around to where, you guys aren't having C-bill issues, but they are, sort of favor them, like we just said. But we do have to move on. And speaking of planet ownership rewards, let's go ahead and talk about that. What are some things that you guys would like to see? Because we don't really know of anything just yet. I know Russ is going to be talking about it. And so if, who wants to talk about the first X up in
Yeah,
chat?
I mean, basically, planetary rewards, I think, right now we got our tags, and that's cool. And it was the first shiny, but I think that definitely something more substantial. There's things that people have thrown out there as MC, C-bills, some kind of reward based on a planet. Like this planet has certain factories, so you get certain mechs at a discount, or if you take this planet, it cuts off these resources or increases whatever. There's a lot of ideas for planetary ownership and the rewards that would come. Steve Mack, what do you think?
Well, pretty much what you just said there. Like, for instance, some planets do have mech factories, so you get a factory that makes, say, Jaeger mechs. You get anybody in your unit that has the unit that has the tag on that planet can buy a Jaeger mech at, say, 30% off the price for C-bills, or use so much of their loyalty points for it.
Yep, I like that. Gecko?
Another idea could be match selection. Like basically cases of if it could possibly be worked into the UI of like, cool, we own this planet and we're dropping in a 12-man. We now have the the it's kind of like more on us to try to hold on to that planet and just basically go, all right, cool, we get to pick the map. And that's basically giving them that advantage of being able to do that. But obviously you have to
Interesting.
kind of curve that a little bit. Another one could be free consumables, like basically free whenever you're dropping for that faction on that planet specifically. Cool, your consumables are free. That allows you to kind of have more options in terms of like A, you make more C bills because you're not wasting as many, and then B, you can kind of like load up on that, or
Airsi.
Yeah, I agree with like plant ownership having an impact on like what tech you can buy, and I really like the idea of like kind of like a supply bonus in a way of being able to get cheaper mechs or cheaper or even like free coolant pods or stuff like that for your mech. But I think in order to really work out a system that would reward plant ownership correctly, I think the algorithm for determining who owns the plant needs to be looked at, because I think one thing we kind of saw with the beginning of CW is a lot of the competitive teams, they're generally a lot smaller than the really large permanent house-based teams. And the house-based team would take the name of the planet just because they have a total much larger number of wins on the planet, even though the ratio of wins to losses is a lot higher for the competitive team. So I think this would possibly have an issue of shorthanding the competitive teams and giving too much of a bonus to the larger units.
Unless they form alliances. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Phil, you had a comment?
Well, I just want to sort of say great ideas, Gecko. I mean, again, I know the idea of, and I'm not discrediting anybody here, I'm just saying, the idea of just C-bills. I think we have to look past that. Those are what I was just talking about as far as like rewards for units is higher level stuff. Not just C-builds are only good for once, twice. That's it. I mean, you own mechs, we don't lose them, and unless they implement that where it's only community warfare and you get stuff for really cheap or whatever, okay, cool. But as far as I'm talking about stuff like what Gecko was just talking about, some higher level stuff to where if I own the planet and it's a munitions factory or it's a drone factory, then we get free UAVs or stuff like that, or we get extra UAVs or something other than, or hey, we own this planet, so we get to pick the drop zone where you're at, i.e. the map or something like that. Because if you just, C-bills is just, it's surface stuff. It's lower level. It's not as important, and it's over and it's used and it's done for and you move on. Like if I need to, same thing with like weapons. Weapons are cheap as is. That's really not going to do a whole lot. I'm not saying that's not a bad idea, but those are definitely lower level fruit. I think any unit out there would really, really like those higher level things. And ideas like that, by the way, guys, post them up everywhere. If you got them, it's always great to hear, because, sometimes you have a great idea and you think, oh, everybody knows, and you don't. And next thing you know, it's a great idea. So I actually really like that, Gecko.
Gecko, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah. Another thing I just thought of quick as well is that a lot of times we have, like he was talking about, people were simply able to take position on that planet simply by having the volume of matches on there. I think something that could be done as well as having not really like a consolation prize, but like secondary factions that can kind of be mentioned on there, because a lot of times units are kind of discouraged when they don't see their name on there, even though they put a lot of effort in there. Kind of having just a note on there of like, hey, this is they've also put the effort in there. Having something on there kind of shows how close they were, how far they were, and how much they contribute to that fight. And then you can add to this having like maybe like fortifications or forts, if you will, or bases or what have you. Cool, this unit has a base on this planet, and you can even play around that in the game as well, having base like specific types of fort maps, if you will. That are I know that a lot of them already have gates and turrets and all that kind of good stuff, right? So it's kind of hard to differentiate. But having specific fort maps where a unit has been, it's a lot more conducive to just killing everybody as opposed to just killing the generators. But allowing those factions that have those secondary forts on there to participate in defending those forts should they come under attack could be another incentive. Like, hey, I want to play on that map, or hey, I want to defend the planet, that I fought really hard to take and help take. I want to play on these kind of maps, and I can choose to do so if I'm part of that faction and I'm running a 12-man or whatever.
Steve?
Yeah, like what he just said. With like you get some units, like for instance, Rangers and Aces will be hitting a Merrick planet for all day, and Aces will have just say 1 or 2 more members on that team. They get their name on the planet, but we've put in a lot of work as well. Have it where like the top 2 or 3 teams get the Aces gets their name on the title, planet, but the top 2 or 3 teams get a share of the victory prize.
Well, I have to say, I love all of the above. Just the idea of adding more rewards, both match rewards and planetary ownership rewards. I think there's a lot that can be done there. I think that'll help bring people back. Think it'll help keep people interested. The next topic was actually loyalty points. We're going to hear about that from Russ tomorrow. So unless, any of you four have something specific that you want to comment on loyalty points, I am going to move on to the next discussion topic. So I don't see any X's coming up. So I'm going to move on to the next one, which is ceasefire. We know right now there's one ceasefire every 24 hours, and that's going to be changing to 3 ceasefires every 8 hours, and multiple reasons for this happening. There is actually a very large North America population that loves playing MechWarrior Online, and basically they've been getting the short end of the stick. They're not awake when we're, those crucial 4 hours or whatever before ceasefire. So hopefully that's going to make that a little bit better. But let's get into the discussion about that. What we expect to see from going from 1 ceasefire a day to 3 ceasefires a day. Who has a comment? Let's go with Gecko first.
I think you're going to see a lot more plants being, taken. Obviously, you see sometimes when populations shift and you see plants start to plants being taken, all go in one direction for like a week straight, and you imagine that times 3. So that may be an issue for smaller territory factions, i.e. the clans. It may not even make a dent for the larger ones. But I also see it being a bigger potential to kind of go back and forth on planets and making that planet give and take a little more dynamic, making it a little bit more exciting as opposed to seeing the bar go tick up and tick down, tick up and tick down. You'll see planets go back and forth and whatnot. So hopefully we'll see it, give them the benefit of the doubt, and we'll see what happens.
Antonius.
Yeah, I don't know how much I fully support the 3-stage 24-hour period. I definitely agree. Something has to be done to make CW more appealing to the European and oceanic populations. Absolutely, that needs to occur. But I guess I was more of a fan of perhaps a rotating schedule where, say, it shifts 4 hours every day. So we'd have a 20-hour schedule or a 28-hour schedule, something like that.
Why not both?
But well, you could do both to some degree. But I share the same concern that Gecko had, where let's look at say Davian versus Liao or Ghost Bear versus anyone. I mean, if you can suddenly take 3 times the planets you did in every day. I mean, imagine if Ghost Bear was able to take 3 planets a day and everything happened the same as it did over the last 5 weeks. I mean, Ghost Bear would already beat Terra. So some concerns there, right? Not to say we can't make that work, but anyways, I had felt a rotating schedule might be more effective because I fear the potential for 3 planets taken a day.
Airside?
Well, let me break down first off. Is the issue remains of the ceasefire or window to take planets is what, basically 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern or something like that, correct? Currently? That's what it's at? Well,
when most people are participating, it's up
to
ceasefire 4 hours before that.
Yeah, so my point being is, right now, the window to actually flip a planet is North American time zone. So the issue remains of anybody outside North American time zone, basically they're sleeping, they're at work, doing whatever, and it's not fair. So they're introducing this so that there's more opportunities. Now, that also causes issues, is basically North Americans are going to be at work, asleep, and we're going to have, it's all going to be rotation. So you're going to have planets taken on and off times. And so what that's really going to fall down to is those factions or mercenaries, whoever allied with whoever, have to have a strong player base. Like, for instance, if you guys are Davion and you're heavy North American, you may lose planets during your ceasefire. So my question is to you guys, is there even a point to having battles outside of that 4-hour window? I mean, like right now,
Yes,
is there a point?
Yeah,
certainly there is a point, and it comes in for the Europeans and the oceanic groups. They play all their games at their off times, but say let's take OMC, Oceanic Merc Corps, as an example. Every time they win a drop with a 12 man of OMC, they put 12 OMC points towards that planet. And so say Mercstar and OMC are fighting over helping each other on the same planet, and OMC puts 100 points down earlier in the day. And then, the planet shifts back down to 0, and then Mercstar wakes up at 9 p.m. and does their thing and pushes it back to 100%. But Mercstar's only able to get, say, 80 points. OMC will pick up the planet. And so it is useful. Like, you can't say it's valueless, but where you're right is that it's true. The planet's actually swinging. That's all gets decided at the end, just due to the way CW works. But that doesn't mean that those teams can't put their name on the planet. I mean, you see OMC and some of the other European teams or Oceanic teams having tags on planets, right?
Well,
STS.
I guess my point being, and you're 100% right. You're basically saying it counts, but it sort of doesn't. My point being is, I've heard a lot since community warfare has been implemented. There was really no point up until, or you had large units basically flood at the very end and flip the planet, because that last 4 hours mattered, and the first however many 19 really didn't matter. Now we're going to have a lot more opportunities. So are you guys in favor? Are you looking forward to the 3 hour window? I guess that's a question. Are you guys in favor?
Well, that's part of it. But Aerosai, did you have a comment? Aerosai, you did X up.
Yeah, sorry about that. My computer locked up. Thanks, Obama.
No, it's okay.
No, I'm all in favor of the at least a change to the current 24-hour schedule, because right now, we're seeing just the CW queues just being relatively empty almost the entire day, and then once the last 2 or 3 hours kicks up, that's when everybody logs on. That's when everything instantly changes. So I think being a part of a unit that has lots of players that are overseas in the European areas, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing them be able to participate and have more of an impact on what's going on. But I think, there'll definitely be some growing pains in the way, waking up and discovering that you lost like 2 planets and stuff going on. So I can definitely see some speed bumps in the road.
Gecko.
I think one thing we can do to kind of curve that kind of loss of planet is make taking a planet from that faction harder the more planets they lose within a given time frame. So let's say they lose 3 planets in a row, or even more because they're getting hit from multiple fronts or whatever. Start making the percentage requirement to take those planets higher until they start defending, so those planets stop being taken, and then reset the cooldown again. So it kind of gives them a little bit of a breather, in the sense like, hey, we're getting hit. This is making it a little bit easier to defend more and more. And then finally, once we are able to defend, all right, we caught our breath. Now we're back on normal mode again. Maybe that's a way to kind of like blunt that concern a little bit.
Steve, what are your thoughts on the ceasefires?
I'm actually all for the 3 time zones, because my unit's actually got an Oceanic content or a group and a European group, and one of the first things they said at the beginning is why. Everything just flips in the last couple hours on the North American time anyway, so everything we've done during the day just gets totally wasted anyways. We've seen it where they've actually run planets up to 100, and by the time we all get on, the other Oceanic teams or other factions have run it right back down with there's nobody there to do anything with it.
Yeah, now I think in general, it seems like everybody thinks the 3-time ceasefire is going to be a little bit better. There are some other ideas. I'm actually surprised none of you brought this up. Some people have suggested, and I think we'll hear maybe a little bit on this from Russ tomorrow, the idea of having basically all the matches in a 24-hour period count. So basically everything gets tallied up at the end of 24 hours. It'd be a different system than what's being used now. I think that the 3x8 is a move in the right direction, better than what's happening now. Whether it's ultimately the best, I don't know. I think we're gonna have to see it implemented, see what happens. I do definitely think that all the matches need to count, whether it's a 3x8 or everything being tallied up in 24 hours. Antonius.
I like that idea you brought up. I've sort of thought about it a bit in the past. The problem I see with that is if you have every game count and you display the current value that a faction is at on a planet. Let's say, the day starts at midnight, we go all the way 12 hours later, and so we're at noon, and one planet is up 300 to 0, or even a smaller number, like 150, 100 points to 0. And I think what you might see people looking at the map thinking is that, oh, well, they're so far ahead, we're never going to catch up, let's just not fight there. And so you'll see that come up at, like, even at noon, and it'll come for the 9 p.m. guys, and it's like, oh, well, definitely no reason to fight there. And so because if you can see that number, unless the number is reasonably close where you know, okay, an hour of my unit fighting could make a difference, I think that system would actually be a detriment, where you just see a lot of people going, oh, there's no point in me playing.
Gecko?
I echo what he's saying right there. Just, just that kind of anything that would be a way of discouraging people from playing because they feel like they're not going to make an impact. The key thing is that they don't feel like they're going to make an impact. People will stop playing, and that's the last thing we need to do for the betterment of CW. Another possible way of or new brain fart. My turn now. Another thing that you can get concerned about is that, let's say you make it around like win ratios, all of a sudden you got units going deliberately out of the way to not drop unless they got their A team or unless they have a full 12-man just to maintain that win ratio at a high rate. Again, that's discouraging people from hopping on at all. We want to encourage people from that. One thing we could also do to kind of help that is that you don't have to make it into a multi-planet front. What you can do, if it's possible, to have a ceasefire, have several ceasefires overlap with each other. It says that this planet ceasefire starts at this time, this planet ceasefire starts at this time. So even during a ceasefire, like, cool, we don't need to stop playing. We can just play at this other planet now. And,
interesting.
Basically, instead of having 3, for example, we can have 4, but have them overlap, for several hours. So that way, you can always have a reason to play. May not be on the same planet, but you always have a reason to.
Phil, you wanted to interject?
Well, I think this goes the ceasefire and talking about, populations as far as play times and players anytime. I guess my question is it 24/7? I guess that's sort of what it is, 24/7 community warfare. Do you think it's viable, or do you guys like it, or do you guys see other options out there? Are you happy with it? What are you guys' thoughts on? It's not what I was actually expecting at all when community warfare came out. I thought it was going to be like, hey, from 8 to 11 and from those times and so forth. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, now this is actually a topic that is later on the list, but I don't know if we're going to make it that far. So let's go ahead and answer now. Arisai?
Oh, snap. I was expecting to be first.
Oh, who was first? Was it Antonius?
I think it was Antonius.
No, Airside, you go ahead.
Go for it.
Okay. I would just like to say I really like the idea of the planet-based ceasefire times. I think that sounds like one of the best ways and one of the only ways that you could probably implement a full CW experience that's 24 hours around the clock without going into crunch times every single 2 hours. Definitely it would give the overseas players more opportunities to play, and it would also give people multiple times to overlap with each other. So you may have really large units that have 200 plus players that don't really play with half their unit because half of them are playing overseas. Now you've got integrated groups where all the players are able to play with each other.
Antonius?
Yeah, whatever the answer is, the goal has to be to further include the oceanic and European populations. Like, that has to be the goal. It's such a huge player base when you compare it to all of MW as a whole that, why wouldn't we want to try to fix the problem? My concern with the 3 time zone thing is just simply that 3 planets per day as a possibility could, have us have a reset a month from now after, one clan reaches Terra or whatever, a couple factions get wiped out or things like that, right? So
yeah, I think we're going to need, we all need to tune in, I think, tomorrow and listen. Basically, Russ needs to get, further into detail on how this is going to be implemented. It's hard. I mean, we can obviously guess at how it's going to play out, but I think it needs to be implemented. We need to see it. We need to play it for some weeks and see if it's the right answer, if it's closer to the right answer, or if something completely different needs to be implemented. But again, we have so many topics. We need to move on. So we're going to move on to the next one, which I think you guys will have some input on, which is ghost or turret drops. This is a big area of contention for a lot of people. There's been some suggestions I've been reading on the various forum threads, Reddit, some ideas that have been thrown out there. Nobody likes turret drops, other than maybe people trying to capture a planet and all their members don't mind or whatever, but that, everybody I think gets bored with that. So some ideas have been no turret drops for attackers that are capturing a planet past a certain amount of, basically once they've achieved that 53 or whatever percent, they can no longer do turret drops, but defenders can always do turret drops. Another idea is just no turret drops at all. What if you get to that point, nobody joins, and you just get an auto win and a payout, and you move on to the next match? So with that in mind, who was first up? Gecko, maybe.
Yeah, I think not allowing turret drops altogether. I mean, I'm gonna say right now I don't like them, right? But not allowing them altogether leaves the option open for a faction simply not to drop anymore because they've won open, and that's just never okay either. So I think best case scenario is like, cool, just call it an auto win, not waste people's time dropping a match, let them requeue again if they want to. Would be the better option because no one wants to run through turrets. It's like, all right, cool. At that point, you're just checking a box. They don't care. So don't bother with that. Wins like that need to cost much less than a full-on territory slot because honestly, it shouldn't. I mean, to be perfectly honest, you can drop in 36 players if you have 20 minutes to kill or 30 minutes to kill. You can take a planet, if no one stops you. So that needs to be not to be an issue. It needs not to happen because it can and it has. And again, we go back to those smaller matches. Having the ability to have smaller matches kind of reduces the amount of amount of times this happens. So
Yep. Steve?
Well, pretty much what you said. Make it just cap it out at 53%. You get to a certain point, the pan's going to flip on a turret walk. Why turret walk it up to 100? Or what you said there, or like just mentioned, just take them right out, auto win, lower C-bill, move on. Or lower rewards and just move on.
Has anyone ever lost a turret drop? Would anyone even admit that if they had?
I'll jump in. Yes.
Yeah, not lost a drop, but had most of our mechs destroyed on it. But we were also playing stupid games like the last guy to ready up or something.
Right.
Yeah, we also have kind of a game like if you get killed by a turret because we're running light mechs, whatever. If you get killed by a turret, you have to put 1 million C-bills into the unit coffer.
So you made the turret drops a little bit funner. I like that.
I like that.
You try to make money with that, I mean, sure, you're losing money technically, but like I said before, a lot of us, who are doing that, like we need the C-bills. So it's like, if we're trying to farm C-bills, fine, whatever. If I farm C-bills, we'll run a bigger mech, or just have fun with it. Try to make fun of the situation that you don't want to be in.
Phil, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say, currently, not having an opponent, this is what I think needs to happen. Either you get rid of it and you just get an auto win with very little rewards, or you include PvE elements and you have tanks, VTOLs, maybe even other mechs, and do they want it to be a part? And I guess that's where design has to basically say, is there an actual point? Because right now I don't see the point other than just wasting time and taking a group out of the queue, which we need more in. So anyways, I feel like you just throw in those PvE elements and make them fight AI, and at least it's something. But I think that's where design has to say, what is the point, and do we want them to have to fight, or should it just be an auto win?
Yeah, no, I agree. And Aerosai is going to be brave and talk about his turret loss. Go for it.
Well, tied into both, my opinion on turret drops, I like the idea of it only going up to 53%, and I think I remember seeing on the forums, like the defenders ghost dropping ability was capped once it got below 53%. So basically, it's either you're going to win the planet by 1 or you're going to defend the planet by 1, but that's the maximum extent of how the turret or the ghost drops would go. And I was really in favor of that. Now, when it comes to turret drops, I'm not sure if anyone else has experienced this, but I noticed that if you have a server timeout while you're trying to counterattack and you get a turret drop, it will count as a loss. And we found this out one time when it was literally, we queued up and got a turret drop right before the ceasefire, and the plant was up at 53%, and we had just broken through the gamma generator, and the entire server locked up.
Shit.
But the game apparently was still being recorded for the CW purposes, so by the time the ceasefire was over, the percentage didn't change at all because the full countdown to the game timed down to 0, and it counted as a loss for the counterattack. So we lost the plant because server disconnected, and I can legitimately say, yes, we lost a turret drop.
Well, good to know. We will be hearing more about ghost or turret drops from Russ tomorrow, so again, tune in. We're going to move on to the next topic, which is maps. Obviously, currently, we have 2 community warfare maps, Boreal Vault and Sulphurous Rift. We have the new one coming, I think, early next month, the Canyon Network-based map. So what are your thoughts on maps, guys? The 2 current maps. Gecko.
They're not big enough, honestly. It's just it's what it goes down to. Sure, you don't want to do a lot long walks, right? But they're very linear. They don't leave a lot of options. Like I was, talking to a lot of the guys who were, learning how to drop command and do that stuff. Like I was drop commanding in CW, believe it or not, is actually easier than it is in pubs because you remove the necessity for flanking and maneuvering. So you just either go or you stay. That's pretty much what your choices are. There needs to be more options that way. I mean, I know people want to get funneled, want to funnel people into choke points. Roger, cool. I just feel like the entire map is more or less a choke point, and that's kind of takes away from it. Even Boreal Vault is just basically a wide choke point turning into a small choke point, turning into many choke points, and then turning into Omega.
Yeah, Phil and I have seen the heat maps for. I don't know if they've been posted, for everybody, but for the community warfare maps, and there was no surprises for me. I knew exactly where everybody's going, same places we go. And yeah, there's not a lot of options. But now specifically, let's talk about Boreal Vault first. Does anybody have any comments on either attack mode or defend mode on Boreal? Is there anything that needs work? Is there stuff that's good there?
Let me go a step further. What are things that you like about the maps? Is there anything in particular that they did right with community warfare maps that you want to see continued? And then on the flip side, what are things that you'd like to not see in future iterations?
Well, so I'm queued up here. I do like them. I just feel like they could capitalize on some of the terrain that they've done. I like the terrain on Sulphur. I like the areas just outside the gates of Gamma, and actually all of them. Actually, they're all really fun areas to fight in. It's just a pain. It's just a pity that we don't get to fight in those areas often enough. I feel like Boreal does a good job, like just outside the gates. That area is very, feels condensed, but it feels like very claustrophobic if there's too many of you in there, and it's very dangerous if the enemy can kind of choke point you in that spot. Like the little tank trap or the little mech traps, here and there, they're kind of cool. Maybe a little bit much, but here and there, they're really cool. I like the fact that they adjusted the terrain dynamically during that one patch where they went from having flat hills to mountainous terrain. That was pretty cool. I feel like it could use some work. I do like some of the parts of the maps. It's just there's a lot to be desired in terms of what kind of gameplay they promote.
Sure, Arisai.
Yeah, I think Sulphurous is pretty good where it's at. I think Boreal does need some work from the attacking side, but I think overall some map work because I've noticed on Sulphurous, people utilize large portions of the map. They go different routes to Omega, different routes to get to the generators. You have the 3 gate options in there. But for Boreal, I wouldn't be surprised if the heat map, like all the colors are all on the outsides, on the flanks, either left or the right side, because there's really no incentive to go up the middle side, and so I feel there's a huge portion of the map that players don't utilize. So I'd like to see some changes on Boreal just so we can utilize that area. But I think overall, like the biggest thing that community warfare definitely needs is just more maps in general, and I think the map department's definitely working hard on that. But more maps definitely makes it harder to figure out which loadouts you're going to take because you are going to have different atmospheres and everything. So I think just more maps in general will solve a lot of problems with the repetition and gameplay.
Yep, I agree. There's 2 in production that we know of now, and hopefully a lot more after that. Steve?
Well, Sulphurous I like because with the 3 gates, you're constantly thinking, okay, you can't really see which way they're going until they start hitting the generator. Whereas Boreal, you can sit somebody in the middle and there they are. It's just Boreal's too linear. It's just exactly what's going to be happening. It's just really no thinking about it.
Gecko, you're next, but Phil, you wanted to interject?
Well, I have to ask, do you think the layout of the maps play towards what gameplay you guys are seeing and what mechs are being brought? What are your thoughts on that as far as drop decks and stuff? Has that influenced just
Gecko?
To answer Phil's question, I think it does because we are seeing configurations and certain mech chassis just go from not being usable or used often in pub matches to now being our primary go-tos in these situations. So your likeliness of getting into a niche situation, i.e. really close, i.e. really far, are more consistent. So you can now more reliably bring a sniper mech or more reliably being a brawler mech, knowing that you'll get the use out of it. So that's a good thing, I think. At the same time, general mechs are obviously good because you never know. You can operate in different situations. But to speak on the things they could do different for Boreal, he hit the nail on the head, saying that the heat map would be on the far left or the far right. I think the one thing that can be changed about that map that would instantly make the center viable is make a tunnel. Just like from the what's that brain fart, the industrial map that came out not too long ago.
Oh yeah, okay, but you're saying a tunnel from where to where on Boreal?
I mean, basically, it's from inside the gate, right? You go into one of those gates. You either go towards the center, and from there it has a tunnel going from there. So instead of having that open valley, that road, having that covered by a tunnel, now you have instantly more cover. It blocks defenders' line of sight, from being able to shoot you from both directions, and it also serves as yet another choke point. So it gives the defenders another option in terms of how to defend, but it makes going to the center not suicidal.
Interesting. Steve?
Well, loadouts definitely change per map. Like Boreal, you're gonna load up. Like myself personally, I'll load up on missiles and Gauss weapons and PPCs. Whereas the Sulfur map, I'm gonna have everybody decked out in close range combat stuff like brawl, because generally with the Sulfur map, that's what it ends up being, is a brawl. So yeah, the Sulfur map is definitely by far a much better map to play on than Boreal Vault.
Oh, by the way, I'm not sure if you know this, but you can tell which map you're about to drop into before you drop into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people have figured that out. Yeah, that's unfortunate that some people don't understand that, because that does totally help. You know what map you're dropping, you know what mechs to pick, etc. Phil?
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, obviously we're, metaphorically speaking of what we like or don't like or what we'd like to see. But one of the things I consistently see is, I see some people say they want bigger maps, and I have some people that say they want smaller maps. And then I also see a point to both. Like, for instance, they are big maps right now, but they're linear, right? You go down either 3 paths or 2. Why not have it so the fight starts further out, even smaller gates, and then it's this progression of a fight and stuff. Right now I see a lot of units asking that are defenders to be able to open the gates and stuff like that. I almost feel like this fight just seems to be the attackers drop, they walk a long way, and then they get to this gate, they blow it up, and then the fight goes around. I almost feel like the fight should start, and especially Sulfur, you have plenty of areas for smaller gates as well. It doesn't have to be huge, gigantic ones. But I mean, those are the type of things that I would love to see maps sort of evolve to. And you even heard Russ. He did say these maps were rushed. He did say that. He said, we would like, and hopefully the future maps will be better. But those are the type of things that is more of a dynamic play. It's not just we drop and we sit on our laurels. I don't think defenders should be behind a wall if they don't want to be. I feel like they should be able to unlock, or again, if it's multi-layered, they can fall back to different gates and stuff like that. But just something a little bit more engaging instead of just drop, you wait, okay, they're coming and stuff like that. I think would be enjoyable.
Gecko, I want to move on to the next thing, but do you have a short answer or
Somewhat short.
Okay.
A map doesn't necessarily have to be bigger to feel bigger. I mean, you have a great example of Canyon Network. If you don't have jump tests, that map feels really, really big, whereas it's not really that big at all. Bog, it's not that big of a map, but because of all the terrain, it feels like a really big map. So I think just need to do a better job of making the map feel better, having more terrain, just kind of like being there to have more tactical considerations. And then the small additional point to that is fortification placement. You guys know there's like those little ditches just outside the Boreal Gate. Why are they outside pointing in when we could probably be better having them for the defenders to use pointing out?
Yeah,
cool.
So I mean, you have all this space and it's not being used, and I think that's what a lot of that would be even a critique of like normal solo group maps is using that extra space.
So more map love. We all want to see that. Now let's talk specifically both of these maps, future maps, whatever. Turrets, dropships, generators, gates. What do you guys think? Is there anything? Do you want to see more dropship action, stronger, weaker dropships, turrets, more turrets on the other 3 generators that were added? Should the generators be stronger, weaker? Some people have said, what is, they don't understand. You destroy a generator, therefore it loses power, but then somehow it opens up. People want to be able to attack the gates directly. What are your guys' thoughts, Gecko?
Personally, I feel like we should probably move. They probably should move away from the generators and have a more of a capture point, because the light rush didn't go away. You just have to be better at it. There's nothing easier than win the game if you want to do a really well coordinated rush, and that's just kind of sad in some cases where it's just like it's not sad in the sense that it's demeaning in the sense that it's I want it to be more about combat, and if you play the objective more dedicated, if you roll around your strategy being to take those generators out, even an organized team cannot stop that. I've not seen one yet that can do it. So it's one of those things where, like, I think we should move away from that all-in type of objective where you can spend all of your resources going after the objective, not really try to kill the enemy, and you can still win.
Steve, I think I passed you, and then we'll go to Eris.
I'd like to see the turret, like a few more turrets actually pointing at the new generators, so you can't just hide behind it and shoot it and open up. You actually have to move around and shoot it. Plus, on the maps, the 3 turrets behind the guns, put streaks on the things. That will definitely help curb a light rush, or at least give the defending team a chance to beat it back.
Erisai?
Yeah, I think in general turrets could use a buff, and I think if turrets get buffed, because already right now, like, if you ignore them, especially if you're a light mech or even if you're a larger mech, they can do damage, and they're not the turrets that are in normal assault mode where you can pretty much just ignore them like lows. But I think if we can buff the turrets, then we can add a kind of a secondary objective where you can have, say, a turret generator that the team can send like a light lance off to, and try to take that out to make the rush for the generators and the mega later on a lot easier.
Cool. And Phil touched on it earlier. AI, AI could play a big part in adding to these matches. For example, you break open the gates and that initiates, a squad of helicopters flying in or something like that. What are your elementals, whatever, helicopters, tanks, infantry, all of a sudden flamers
I want
work.
tanks.
Yeah, we all do. So what are you guys' thoughts on AI and implementing those into the maps and the game modes? Phil?
I like the idea. I think immersion factor, would be through the roof. We've talked about, AI infantry, machine guns, flamers having use. We also want to look at the bigger picture too, as far as role warfare. I think, Gecko, to go back to what you said earlier, you said bigger maps. Even though I disagree to some extent. I think we have huge maps, but I think what you're getting to is, like, there's no alternate ways to come in the, the bases, but also role warfare, scouting, stuff like that. There's really no need. I mean, if you're the attackers, you got these lanes and stuff like that. So with AI, I think, it lends the ways. And again, going back to those higher level, what happens if you win planets and one of those benefits is you have double the amount of infantry or tanks and stuff like that. Imagine, running up and going to the gates and your infantry, all those type of things. I don't see why not, but I will say I want it done right. One of the key examples, Titanfall, their infantry. Love, love, love. If you've never watched a video or played that game, the infantry work phenomenally, but I've also seen AI done horribly in other games as well. So it's one of those things, if it adds to the immersion factor, isn't necessarily too dominant as far as damage to the players. So the players are still the end-all be-all. I'm happy. And I think that's where AI have to be, is they have to be a force, but, a force to be reckoned with if you're ignoring them and not doing anything to them. But why not? It's Battletech. We've never had any game outside of really Mech Commander, Mech Warrior 4 and 3 and stuff had 10, but it was just, man. I mean, you could kill a dropship with a medium mech. I mean, it was stupid. So why not? I think it'd be phenomenal.
Gecko?
I think you're right. I think it would be a great addition to the game. I can easily imagine like having like a unit perk of owning something, or having in the inventory an elemental drop, having a dropship fly over you know, the defending base dropping off a star of elementals to kind of go wreak havoc. This just I get you know, inappropriately excited over that shit. So it's, you know, it's one of those things where I think it's a really good thing, but I think it's all for naught if we don't curve something about the defender's spawn points, because if you keep spawning them on top of the objective that the attackers need to go against, they're always going to be encouraged to rush, get to that objective as fast as possible, at, you know, at any detriment, at any cost. So if we were able to spawn them away, further back from the actual objective, to give attackers a reason to knock the defenders out, so that way they're not instantly spawned on top of them with a fresh mech, that would be, you know, those extra elements, like having elementals defending the base while you're respawning, or dropping off elementals between the points where they spawn and where the objectives are at. All those things can be really useful, but in the end, they're not going to mean much if you can just dive past them and hit the Omega, you know, enough times to kill it.
I like
Antonius.
that idea there. You had using tanks or choppers or AI units more than just the current turret system to help defend the VIP base. And that's not a topic on the list that I can see, and I don't think we need to go into the concept of spawn camping and why you have to spawn camp if you want to take the objective and whatever, all the crap that goes along with that. But that is an innovative system there, and I that could perhaps be workable in that if you have additional defenses or little AI units that won't roam away from the base or things like that, and then perhaps we can drop people away from the objective. I think there's some value in that, because I mean that is at the core of the spawn camping debate. Is, well, is it really spawn camping if I'm attacking your base and you're spawning on top of me? I do have to kill you then. But obviously, you know, there's both sides of the argument. So I like that idea, Gecko. That was good.
And then, you know, again, those higher level things for actually owning planets, or maybe because you're part of a faction, of being able to upgrade those things. PGI has said, being able to upgrade possible turrets or dropships, or I don't know. I mean, those are the type of things where you can upgrade what tanks or what infantry. Maybe they have a little bit more HP, or maybe different weapon systems and stuff like that. So those are things that I think would be really cool. And again, it's not a C build, just sort of, you know, a layer of paint there. But, you know, AI, I think, is instrumental. I just think it has to be done right. But from the immersion factor, one of the coolest things I will say, talking about the maps, is that first time you know, you have a drop ship coming in, drops you off, or you see them come in, and I think it's phenomenal. I think we'd all agree. Yeah, it just, that BattleTech sense, we have never had that before. Now, I know some of you guys are like, yeah, we did, Phil, and MechWarrior 2 and stuff. Not like that, we didn't. No, we've never had it where dropships are literally dropping people off. There's another thing for infantry and AI as well, is what happens if it's a part of it, like not a consumable per se, but you can point on the ground, press a button, and all of a sudden a dropship comes over, drops a squad of infantry or a tank, you know, stuff like that. Think of how dynamic things like that could be, you know, and I think it would add a lot to the game, and you know, it'd be interesting. Or even if it wasn't even an offensive unit, what happens if it's a big blockade bunker, or a wall or concrete or something, or a smoke screen? Those are the type of things I think, yeah, those are the type of things that I think would be really cool. But we don't know. They've talked about AI, but we just don't know if that is something.
We'll hear more tomorrow night. Steve, I'm going to let you close the discussion on AI. Go for it.
Well, AI would actually go a long way. So if they don't take out the ghost runs, instead of just ghost running in, you have to actually fight the AI to get through there still. And if if it's an attack and you're going against a planet held by a faction, that faction could actually use the unit coffers to boost the AI elements that are there.
All right, guys, good discussion on maps and AI and so forth. Guys, we are running out of time. Literally, we have people in 10 minutes that have to leave. So we're going to wrap this up with one more discussion topic. We're going to go through it as quickly as possible. We are unfortunately going to miss out on several discussion topics that we did want to touch on today, but we will be doing this, I think, weekly. I think the demand will be there. It was a lot of fun. I've had a great time discussing all this. You know, I'll say some more when we wrap it up. I don't want to take too much time away from the next discussion topic, which is tactics and strategies. This is for both maps. You know, we've seen a lot of things. There's the light rush. There's stalling. People are stalling some of the higher skilled teams just to keep them out of the fight for a certain amount of time. There's short range and long range. There's the people that are complaining that there's a play to win meta tryhards or whatever versus the play to have fun anti-meta group. What are your guys' thoughts on tactics and strategies? Let's see. Phil, did we have any? Okay, Antonius.
I think it's there's so many different topics. I mean, you got the spawn camping and stalling, and a couple teams have tried to hide mechs out in the middle of nowhere to delay games and whatever. And I think it's important to realize a couple of things. One, that this is a beta. PGI is actively looking into all of this and how to make the game better for everyone. And two, that for the first time ever, units are fighting for something, right? We have CW. This has been what we've been waiting for 2.5 years, and
My home planet.
a lot of teams are here to play. And so, I mean, I don't think it's too out of line to expect teams to play to win. And we're in a new system, right? CW. There's all these mechanics and different stimuli that make different tactics valid or other tactics not as valid. And so there's so many different things going on. I mean, we can talk about 24 different plays on the 2 different maps alone. But it's exciting to see a new age for MWO. We've got new tactics, new strategies, new ways of playing, new drop decks, and it's an exciting time to be playing MWO for sure. It's been a long wait. Very excited to be here.
Cool. And yeah, when he just said beta, no, MechWarrior Online is not in beta. Community Warfare is in beta. It's a phase. It's an aspect of the game. Gecko, you?
Yeah. Again, like you said, you can talk for days about different tactics and strategies that can be utilized. One thing I find is really cool. It's creating situations and tactical scenarios that didn't exist in the pub queue. So, like certain builds, certain chassis that were just straight up DOA or just not, viable, are now becoming viable in very niche ways. And so that's exciting. For a person like me who likes to, number crunch and look at the different metas and try to, outthink the opponent. Whenever that's really exciting for me. I get to have a new playground to play with, in essentially a sandbox type thing where you can think that through. But in terms of the mentality between, oh, is it a try hard place? Is it not? Is it a casual place? It's like you're playing for keeps. Like you can literally see what you're playing for on the map. You can literally have your name on it or not. I don't know. It's my mentality. It's like if you're going into it, bring your big boy pants or don't come.
Aerosai?
Yeah, as I said in an earlier response, one thing I love about community warfare is just that tactics do work. It's no longer just, standard death ball. Yeah, sure, there's light rushes and there's attrition-based games and spawn camping that goes on, but those are all just like 3 different tactics, and there's just a huge amount of tactics that can work. Like earlier on, we would send one light mech to like hit one of the generators, draw half their team over, and then the other team would take down the other generator, rush in, and take the base. And it's just being able to see that you can actually have strategizers actually work out strategies and plans based off what they see in the enemy team or what they know of them so far and use that against them. And I think that's the largest staying point for community warfare, is just there's so much flexibility in what you can do. And it definitely helps even the playing ground, where you can have a lesser skilled unit, but they can have a masterful tactician. They can have them lead them to victory over a higher skilled team. And I just love that.
Well, while I have you guys here, we have units that have played strictly clan, and we have units that have played IS. That was a topic of discussion, the clan versus IS. Do you guys find it more of tech is an issue as far as the dominant factor, or do you find it's the team and teamwork is OP?
Organization and teamwork is OP.
Organization.
Absolutely.
There's been too many times where I've gone against the teams in this room, has shown me from both sides that that it's organization. I mean, there's too many times where I run into individuals who are complaining about tech imbalance, but these are the same individuals who aren't shielding, who are bringing bad builds, who aren't using the quirks that are allocated to them. And so when you're using all the things that are out there as primarily, like say, an industry player, which is what I hear mostly coming from, when you use the quirks like they're intended, those things are ridiculous. They're really powerful. So at that point, it comes down to organization. Can you organize better than your opponent? If the answer is no, you're probably not going to win, regardless of what tech you're running.
And I don't want to hear no shit about Thunderbolts. There's so many good IS mechs. Multiple multiple, like 3 or 4 excellent Thunderbolt builds, not just the PPC one.
Absolutely.
And then on the flip side, Clanner, well, awesome. So it's a reasonably well balanced, surprisingly.
And hopefully getting better.
If there is an imbalance, it's a minor one.
Well, I mean, there's more, Phil could tell you a lot more than me, but there's a lot more to the quirks coming, and yeah, I mean, there's going to be more balance happening and more mechs that will shine soon. Steve, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just what was echoed there. It's like at the end of the day, it comes down to tactics and organization.
Absolutely does. Guys, unfortunately, God, this seriously could have easily, I think, been 4 hours. We will be having
easily.
more. Yeah. First of all, the 4 of you, Antonius, Arisai, Gecko, and Steve, thank you so much for showing up today and spending 2 hours. I'm guessing your units are fighting community warfare right now, and you're absent from that. But we totally appreciate it for you guys taking the time. Everybody that's shown up, we're going to be doing more of this. We didn't touch on a lot of discussion topics, including drop decks, speaking specifically of certain mechs like Timberwolf, Stormcrows, Thunderbolt 9S, etc. Game modes, both attack and defend, the changes to counterattack coming, plus there's other game modes already in design and so forth. Just general issues like Phil was touching on, 24/7 community warfare, new player experience, performance optimization, player run leagues and tournaments, how that affects community warfare. Like, for example, MRBC is starting up. Are we going to see a decline in population? All these things are going to be stuff that we're talking about every week. It looks like we're probably going to do this every week. So I'm really excited, really thankful for everybody showing up. Phil, you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I just want to give quick shout outs again to the guys in here. Merc Star, Jade Falcon Prime, Robinson Rangers Brigade, and Clan Wolf International. And they're, the guest tonight. Appreciate it, Rex and Arisai, Gecko, and Steve for being here. It's been great. And it's always interesting getting, the viewpoint from you guys. And, quite positive. I think that's another thing is a lot of people can take out of this first implementation of community warfare is it worked. It needs a lot of work, but we can see the potential. So again, thank you guys, and thank you to everyone out there who is watching. We just want to say appreciate your time, and we will be posting this up on YouTube, and I think Darren's also going to be posting it possibly to SoundCloud as well.
Yeah, it'll be both.
But I just want to say thank you to our community, our supporters, and our staff, everyone behind the scenes, and all of you unit leaders out there. Look forward to sitting down and talking with you, well, some of you next week, and then going on from there on out.
Yeah, and don't forget, somebody was asking, wait, isn't the town hall tonight? No, this was the roundtable discussion with unit leaders. Tomorrow night is the roundtable meeting with Russ, and that will be starting 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll be discussing a lot of stuff we discussed tonight, but Russ is going to have the answers. So community warfare will be probably the main topic, but we'll also be talking about 2015, what's coming. Totally worth tuning in for, so please do. And yeah, we'll do shout outs for these guys. So Antonius, go for it.
Well, I guess I got 2 shout outs. One, first of all, to PGI. Frankly, the launch of CW was above and beyond what I had expected, and I'm very, very pleased with it. And it's still early. They're going to be adding just thing after thing to this, and very, very excited to play in it. So tip of the hat to PGI for getting this rolling. That was an impressive 2014 Christmas gift. And
Awesome.
then
You want to say anything to your unit?
Yeah. A big shout out to all of the Mercstar Alliance. We've got Clan Kodiak, SWK, or Swords of Kentaris, SIG, Star League Reborn. Who else am I missing? Missing someone. The Forsaken
others.
Few. And we just signed on a new unit last night, the Dragons of Morgoth. So excited, we're growing, and man, God bless the CW stuff. This has just been a ton of fun.
Cool. Arisai, you want to say anything? Any shout outs?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to both my con, Merlin Connors, Sawcon, Gunny Ride, along with our Oathmaster, Obi-Wan 206, and then all the leaders in the exos of all the Wolf Galaxies that are operating under us. And I'll also give a shout out to Mercstar for giving us near continuous competition. So thank you guys.
Right on. Gecko?
I want to do a shout out to all my fellow officers and leadership at J Falcon Prime. They've done an immense amount of work to how our unit be as strong as it is now, and also PGI for just for the last several months since they've gotten their independence from IGP. They've been on the ball. I mean, this thing is like I'm surprised and relieved that they're performing perfectly, well, and just everything they're delivering well. They're delivering early. They're delivering when they say they're going to deliver. And also, quick shout out to the guys over at KCOM and Diamond Shiver. You guys have always been cool to us, so we appreciate that.
Sweet. And Steve, you got any shout outs?
Just pretty much to everybody that's over on the House Davian TS server every night. That's working with those guys every day just makes CW just that much more fun.
Awesome. And Phil, you want to take us out?
All right, guys, that's going to be it for tonight. Again, I just want to say thank you to our guest and you guys out there in chat. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be able to do this. So again, looking forward to doing this in the future. And of course, I just want to say, if you haven't followed this channel, make sure to do so you get email notifications. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And this will normally be going on Thursday night. We had to do it tonight because of tomorrow's town hall. But adapt and overcome. Thank you again, guys. And we look forward to sitting down and chatting with you next time. So until next time, Mech Warriors.